The five largest economies in the world are not known to be among the oil-producing nations. Other countries must do something fast to be able to meet up with the challenges of their economies. Which are the oil-producing nations of the world? Well, in Africa, we have Nigeria as number one, and you have, countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, and all that as oil-producing nations. Now, these countries are very rich. They are rich because oil is in demand. That is crude oil, or if you like, petroleum products are in demand all over the world. But unfortunately, some of these nations are not probably aware that the countries of the world are now thinking towards other directions apart from just merely producing oil for exports. Like a lot of persons are already looking at clean energy, deviating from what you used to have as a petrol, as a sources of moving vehicles. Because if you now look at the way things are going, countries developing vehicles that use electricity and all that, which means if care is not taken, these countries that pride themselves as oil-producing nations may be in problem. Because look at it this way, the five largest economies in the world are not known to be among the oil-producing nations. And yet these countries are doing so fantastically well that you want to believe that oil is not necessary as an instrument of economic development. Take America, for example. The domestic product of America stands today at about $26.95 trillion. And if you look at the per capita income, it stands also at about close to $81,000 per capita income. And the one that actually appreciate more is the position of China and India. China now ranks number 2 in the world economy, followed by Germany at number 3, and of course Japan at number 4, and India at number 5. Now, these countries are now the first 5 largest economies in the world. None of them, produce oil. That tells you that alternatives are already challenging the oil production in Africa and Southeast, of the world. Now, if you look at the way these countries manage their economies and the way they now position themselves, you want to believe that other countries must do something fast to be able to meet up with the challenges of their economies. Take, for example, China. China has a population that outweighs that of almost the whole of Africa. But yet, they are so prosperous that their people are not like hungry like you have in some other nations. They are so prosperous that most of the things that they require, they're able to produce. They manufacture, they invent, and all that. They are so prosperous that even the countrymen and women are not too eager to leave the country for other places. They are there working day and night to ensure that the economy grows and the life pattern of the people are of standard, measuring up to any other one in the world. You look at India, the same thing. India manufactures some of the best drugs in the world today. And if you want to compare India, China with countries like Nigeria, you discover that there was a time they were all grouped together as third world countries or developing countries. But look at where they are today now. And yet, some of these other countries that are not really maybe conscious of how the economies of the world are going are still where they were at the point they were grouped together as third world countries or developing countries like India and China. Because there was a time if you saw products from China or all these other countries in the same region with China, you look at those products as inferior. But today now, products from China are some of the best. Products from China are some of the most circulated. And of course, even though there were some of them that are invented in places like America, England, and other places, they still go to China to actually manufacture them for reasons best known to them, especially because the labor is cheap and the economy is stable and the people are honest and all that. So some of the economic inputs in these countries make them actually prosper. And one will only expect that in countries that are still given to making themselves big, feeling big, that they produce oil, must sit up. Otherwise, there'll be a doom in the nearest future. Fossil oil. There are some places in the United States, for example, where banks that bankroll the activities of countries that produce oil are picketed by some activists. That is working against them, advising not to encourage these countries that produce fossil oils because they are already looking towards other directions. And of course, one of the reasons why they are moving away from fossil oil and all that is because of the environmental degradation that we're currently facing. That is a climate change or whatever it is that you give to it. Now, today you hear of some countries going for meetings at one country or the other discussing about climate change. And some of all this are attributed to use of energy arising from fossil oil, and they're working against this. So it is high time the countries that produce oil woke up to the challenges of the future, economically speaking. Go to America, the first in the position of the 5 largest economies in the world. Study what they are doing and see how you can beat them. Go to China, the emerging leader in the economy, and see what they are doing. Go to Germany, the 3rd in position, and see why they are where they are now. Go to Japan and see what Japan is doing. And of course, go to India and see what makes India great, such that they are now 5th amongst the 5 largest economies in the world. So let me leave you here, believing that if you are in any country where you are in a position to actually move the economy forward, you should be able to know how to contribute your own quota, because people say government is not doing this, government is not doing that. All of us are part of the government. And of course, if you are part of the government, it means no matter the position you find yourself, you are a member of the economic team. If you have a firm and you're employing 1 or 2 persons, you are a member of the economic team, because those 2 people you are employing are also employed because you are providing whatever it takes to have them employed. And if you employ 2 people and I employ 2 persons, the other person employs 3 persons, before you know what is happening, your country will be free from unemployment, a pandemic that's actually staring all the nations of the world in the face. Bye-bye.